the podcast today, and as you hear all the time, I go for the best in the industry, and today is no exception. I've got Jake from Stone Realty in the Illawarra, and for those of you who don't know where the Illawarra is, that is a massive area south of Sydney. It's one of the fastest growing when it comes to both capital growth, population, jobs. It is an awesome area. Welcome to the podcast, Jake. How are you?
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you're one of the top, what they call business development managers down there, which are the guys that go out and seek and find all the property management and then
Yes.
occasionally throw out some leads to the listing agents.
Yes.
Property management, a lot of people think, oh, I'll go and buy an investment property, and that's all that they think of. They don't think that how important property management is to managing their investment.
100%.
What would you say to somebody who's just started out and said to you, mate, what is property management and how important is it when it comes to investment property?
I think the key with property management is understanding that it's a long-term relationship. It's very easy to pick up the keys one day and go, yep, no worries, it's not away with the property manager, and it's going to come back to you in the exact same fashion. But property management is not black and white. It is very grey. It requires a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge to do things properly, and it can quite quickly go pear-shaped, even if you've got the most experienced property manager. So having, I guess, all your ducks in a row from the start is very, very important to make sure that the long-term relationship with your tenant, with your agent, with your property always remains positive. That way, the property that you're looking after or your property that you have, the cash flow is always good. The rent return is always have a potential to be at market value, or if not to the higher end of that. And that comes down to maintenance, all those little things as well. So there's a whole bucket load of things that go into property management. It's purely not just collecting the rent and being on your way.
So we'll talk a little bit shortly about the rent and selecting the right tenant. But at the same time, a good property manager can make or break your capital return on your property when you go to sell it. If they're not maintained right, a lot of people just sit and forget, and then they forget they've got to do outside maintenance. Do you see a lot of people taking that time, or do you see that sort of a grey area where it falls down?
I think there's a big difference between ongoing maintenance and ongoing repairs.
Yeah.
Repairs are obviously going to happen as the property gets older and you've got tenants in there. But ongoing maintenance is one of those things that is going to keep your property at a level where you're going to continue to get good returns, good quality tenants, which is super, super important. I always say good quality tenant is far more important than the rent that you get. But the ongoing maintenance, little things like getting your gutters cleaned, making sure that there's no holes in the roof so there's no water getting in. Little things like that make a huge difference to the ongoing nature of the property. If you're continually not doing those things, you'll find your tenants turn over a lot more and end up costing you a lot more money in the long run without the money that you lose based on it being vacant and all those things as well.
So especially for the new time investor, when you're quoting in commercial properties, they quote a net yield because most of the time the tenant pays all of the outgoings. But in residential, it's very different. Can you quickly explain what is residential yield when it comes to investment on those properties and what things they need to allow for?
Yeah, so it's basically obviously the price of the property, and then obviously all of the outgoings that you pay for the year. So all the income that you get for the year, and then obviously have your outgoings like your council rates, your strata rates, your water rates, whatever it might be, comes off the top of that, and that'll give you obviously your yield as well.
So, what would be the average yield of a house in the Illawarra these days?
For a house, depending on where you are, you might get it at 4%. We find better yields in the Illawarra because especially in the suburbs where prices have moved, the rents haven't quite moved as much. So you're definitely getting a better yield in the Illawarra from a unit than you are from a house, depending on how long you've owned it, right? If you've owned it a long time, well, fantastic, because it's still continuing to grow. But if you're going to buy a $1.2 million home, you might still only get $800 return, which is not obviously ideal. Whereas you can go and buy a brand new or a unit 2 years old for 50, you get $700 return. So that's quite strong.
That's actually very good. That's very good high yield.
Yeah. So, and obviously you've got to watch out for your strata rates and all those kinds of things. But as you go on, there's definitely, I'm finding there's better opportunities for buyers down here in terms of a strong cash flow scenario from a unit as opposed to a house. But if you've got a house that you've lived in for 10 years or so, well, that might flip the yield completely as well.
So people quite often, they'll go and buy a unit and they think it's great to have a gym and a pool and a barbecue deck, but that gets added onto the strata title piece, doesn't it?
Yeah, correct. So all of that, I mean, obviously all those, if there's a lift in your building, all those things add to your strata, which is obviously going to increase your outgoings. But in saying that, they're also selling points for good tenants too. If the building's got a pool, if it's got a gym, if it's got a concierge, that's also a plus as well. So it really comes down to what you're looking for. If you're looking for a purely an investment, then I'd probably stay away from those kinds of things, because there's a chance that the strata is going to go up if the lift needs to be repaired or the pool needs to be repaired, something like that. And the special levies are a higher chance to increase. But if it's something that you're wanting to move in down the track, well, that's a different story completely.
So if someone has just bought an investment property, what's a couple of things they need to ask their potential new property manager? I mean, everyone shops around, and it's not always to do with cheapest. But what's some things that a person who hasn't bought an investment property before should ask?
Yeah, I think key things are how much experience is in the team. I can almost guarantee you 80% of the time your investment is going to be fine. It's going to have no issues. It's the 20%, and there's always going to be something. It could be something minor, it could be something major, something's going to happen. You want to know the person on the other end of the phone or the email has dealt with a similar issue or that issue previously and can walk you through it seamlessly. So experience is a really big one, because you can't buy it. The number of properties that person is managing as well. So we see a lot of agencies out there will pump the amount of properties the individual is looking after, which means you're getting less service. The person that's doing the routine inspection or the outgoing inspection or the ingoing doesn't get the time they need on site to do a thorough job, which means they may be missing things that you would otherwise be picking up. And then obviously the number one feedback that I get from my owners is communication. They want to know what's going on when. So for us, for example, we have a 24-hour turnaround. So we basically say to our owners, if you get an email, a phone call, or a text from us, you're going to text us, we're going to come back to you within 24 hours with either an update on where it's at or a solution to your problem. That's huge for, I guess, peace of mind, knowing that we're all over it. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen everywhere. So it's really, really important. So communication, experience, and then the size of the team is really important as well, because that's going to dictate how many people you're speaking to on a daily basis. Is there a different person for the accounts team? Is there a different person for the leasing team? Is there a person for the property manager? It can get very overwhelming if it's not streamlined, and get very frustrating if you're trying to get an answer out of someone who doesn't.
Wow, it's so you mentioned the ingoing and outgoing inspections.
Yes.
Some people say, why do I need them?
The ingoing is an absolute must, a thorough ingoing. So it is essentially the Bible of the tenancy, in the sense of that's the condition the tenants will give them the keys in. That's essentially the condition of the property that we expect when the tenants hand back their keys. Obviously, fair wear and tear in there, but that's essentially, if that's not done properly, if the report's not done properly, if there's not enough supporting evidence when it comes to photos, all that kind of stuff, at the vacate, it can get very messy very quickly. So you want to make sure little things are detailed, the colour of the walls detailed, if there's any marks on the walls that they're detailed. So there's no excuses at the end of the tenancy why the tenant's either not getting their bond back or what needs to happen for them to get their bond back. Because in reality, we want to do everything we can to get that tenant to give their bond back, but we need to make sure we're doing the dotting the I's and crossing the T's first.
So what are some of the misconceptions about what a landlord is liable for and what a tenant is? I mean, you hear stories about tenants ringing up saying the light's gone out in the loo.
Yeah.
You need to come and replace the globe. I mean, come on.
No, so globes throughout the property are always a tenant responsibility.
Yep.
But things like if it needed a new power board, yes, then that would be an owner responsibility. So things keeping the property going are always an owner responsibility. Obviously, cleanliness is a tenant responsibility. Look, in residential, the bulk of the maintenance is an owner responsibility, bearing in mind it wasn't caused by malicious damage from the tenant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they put a hole in the wall, they've got to fix it. And it's really important that little things like, oh, the tenant will fix that when they leave. No, it needs to be fixed then and there, so it doesn't become a recurring issue down the track. So we often hear owners say, look, I don't care as long as it's done when they move out. But it's really important for owners to understand that the repairs need to take place straight away. So that way, if there is an issue, if there is a discrepancy, we can go back and sort it out quickly, rather than waiting 2 or 3 years, because if that happens, you've almost got Buckley's chance of winning that argument.
Can a landlord say on when they advertise a property for sale, no dogs or no cats?
So they can, but the strata can't unwillingly unreasonably deny the request.
Yeah.
But an owner does have the ability to say no pets, no cats. But what I would say is the vast majority of tenants that we see have some kind of pet, whether that's a cat, dog, bird, rabbit, whatever it might be. So I always say, let's assess an application on its merits, and then if it's got a pet, let's assess that as we go. I mean, there's a lot of good tenants out there that have pets because they know they have to be, because it's hard to find a property with that will allow a pet.
Now you've been lucky. You've sat on both sides of the fence in a real estate agent.
Yes.
You've been worked with listing agents. You've listed and sold yourself, and now you're on doing up the development side for the agency down there for Stone. If you were to go and buy a unit as an investment, what would Jake from Stone Realty look at when he's assessing what looks like a good buy and what doesn't?
Look, I think low maintenance, as an investment, I'd be looking for something that's low maintenance in terms of there's nothing that's going to require massive outgoing payments ongoing. Personally, I don't mind a little bit of, if a unit needs a coat of paint, new carpet, something like that, I'd be all for it, because you'd be surprised at just how different a coat of paint and a new set of carpet can make a difference on the overall look and feel of a property. So that wouldn't bother me too much. What I'd be looking at is low maintenance in a good location that's going to have consistent interest from tenants, and in a good area where you're going to get good capital growth. I personally, cash flow is important, but capital growth for me is always super important, because that's where the bulk of the earnings are going to come from anyway.
So you're one of the most successful down there. You've been in the industry a long time. You've got a lot of experience, and you're very good with clients. I have seen it firsthand. That's why I can actually honestly say that. Yes. What makes you, as a business development manager for Stone, so successful where others struggle? Is it lack of experience? Is it not listening? Is it that you've made every mistake and you've learnt from everything you've done?
I think, look, I've been in the industry, 10 years or so. I've been a sales agent. I've done the marketing side. I've been a property manager. I've pretty much done every role you can do in real estate. But I've also interacted, I've bought and sold property myself. So I understand the elements overall and how they blend together. Look, as successful as I have been, I'm nothing without the team, right? The team that are behind me are phenomenal. I've got 5 really good property managers, 2 really good leasing consultants, and a team of admin behind them that do a phenomenal job that make it easy for me. But it's really, really important to understand that it's never just one thing. I mean, the amount of things that can go wrong throughout the process, there's a number of them. Purely experience is one of the things that we can go, I can say to the owner, look, I probably wouldn't go down this way because I know I've seen it happen before and it always ends badly. Or on the flip side of things, I can say, look, I've done this before, it's going to work. Our marketing strategy is second to none. We have the lowest average days on market in the Illawarra. So we're leasing stuff. Over the last 12 months, we've leased about 260 properties with about an average days of 9 on the market.
Wow, that's excellent.
That is partly the market at the moment as well. But look, if you're looking at the Illawarra as a whole, it's probably closer to about the 20-day mark. So there's a few. I'm very strict about the way we do our marketing because I know it works. I'm not a Nostradamus. I can't predict what your property is going to lease for. Obviously, give you a professional range on where I think it sits, but the market's going to do that for us if we present it correctly.
So we're going to see a Stone Realty with a principal starting with the name of Jake?
Oh, mate, not anytime soon. I'm quite happy where I am at the moment.
That's a very diplomatic answer there.
No, it's very I'm very lucky to be here with this team. They're phenomenal, so I can't fault them in any way. They're very supportive principals, admin team, management team, so it's been phenomenal. I think for me it's just about growing as best I can in the role that I do and then see where that goes.
So you know the Illawarra, I mean I love it down there.
Yes.
And if you're looking from Thurrool all the way down to Shell Cove, and Shell Cove's absolutely gone through the roof. It's a fairly new Fraser development that in the last 3 or 4 years seems to be doubling every other 12 months. Where do you think some good spots for people to look at for potential in the Illawarra?
I think if you go, your CBDs, your Wollongongs, your Shell Coves, your Shell Harbours, and it also depends on where you're coming from, because we see some people move from Sydney who have a much bigger budget. They may be able to get to an area where the capital growth is going to be a whole lot better in the northern suburbs. You can pick up something in, Bulli, Woonona, Balgownie, and the capital growth in those suburbs traditionally has been a lot higher than the suburbs further south.
That's true.
It really depends. It really depends on what the individual is looking for, what their needs are. But I mean, the Illawarra, I've only been in the Illawarra, look, to be fair, about 5 years. I moved here from Western Sydney, and I'll probably never go back. There's you can go close to the beach, you can go to the bush, you can do it all, and it's a phenomenal place to live.
So we're about to see the CBD of Wollongong, which is pretty badly designed. Most of it's going to get bulldozed and redeveloped into units, into quality development. Do you see that having a positive impact on the real estate market down around the centre part of Wollongong?
Yeah, look, it's obviously, like most parts of Australia, it's a supply issue, right? Especially for tenants, what we're seeing. More supply is always a good thing. Obviously, the landscape in Wollongong and across Sydney really is changing into more of a unit-based. There's still suburbs like Horsley and Kembla Grange where you can go and buy a house, in a newer development, and you can still get really good rental returns. You're still probably 15-20 minutes from Wollongong, but you're also probably 15-20 minutes from Shell Harbour too. So really depends what you want, but it's more of a family-friendly environment. So in CBD Wollongong, we get, obviously with the uni, we get a lot of uni students, we get a lot of people relocating from Sydney. We're getting young couples, all that kind of stuff in that unit market, which is really important. And then obviously the more supply, the better for everyone. Better for them in terms of buying, selling, renting. We need more supply in general.
Yeah. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic listening to you. It's great to talk to someone who absolutely loves what they're doing, has got a lot of runs on the board, and is known for being very good at looking after the properties and looking after tenants and the owners when it comes to it down there at Stone Realty Illawarra. Jake, awesome. Anyone who's looking to buy a property and wants to lease it, have someone look after it, look up Jake down there. I have no problem in saying I've known this man for a long time. He's true in what he says. He's great in what he does. Everyone, you have a great day, and you want to know more, drop us a line.
Talk to you soon. Thanks so much.